For years, a wealthy but emotionally distant millionaire watched his young autistic daughter sit by the same window every single day. She would quietly raise her hand, point toward the garden, and repeat the same few words no one seemed to understand. Doctors brushed it off as a symptom of her condition. The staff in the house ignored it, and the millionaire father assumed it was meaningless. But then one day a new maid arrived. Unlike the others, she didn't just walk past the child, she stopped. She listened. What she uncovered outside that window would lead to a heartbreaking secret, a missing piece of the past, and a truth that would change this family forever. Before we dive into this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We love hearing from you. Her name was Emma. She was small, gentle, and spoke very little. Most of her time was spent in silence, sitting by the large window in the mansion. Every day without fail, she would press her tiny hand to the glass, pointing outside at the garden, whispering the same haunting phrase. "Mommy. Again. There." She rarely spoke otherwise, and when she did, her words were difficult to follow. Emma had autism, and people around her often assumed her voice didn't carry much meaning. She had no friends, no companions to play with, no children her age to run around the yard with. The garden outside, however, held her attention completely. Every day she pointed in the same direction, repeating the same words, as if something out there mattered more than anyone realized. But her father, Lucas, never truly paid attention. Lucas was a millionaire, owner of a thriving company, surrounded by luxury and power, yet behind the success was a man emotionally shut down. He had lost his wife the very day Emma was born, and he never recovered. He provided his daughter with everything money could buy: food, care, clothes, even the best medical specialists. But what he didn't give her was his time, his warmth, his ear. To Lucas, Emma's quiet pointing and repeated words were nothing more than a part of her condition. He convinced himself she was safe and cared for, and that was all that mattered. Feelings, emotions, and questions were things Lucas avoided. He drowned himself in endless meetings, phone calls, and emails, always finding reasons to ignore what was happening inside his own home. The house staff followed the same cold routine. Maids cleaned, cooks prepared meals, drivers came and went. None of them ever stopped to wonder why the little girl sat so still day after day, pointing at the same spot outside. They heard her soft words but treated them like background noise, something that didn't need attention. Some assumed it was just how autistic children behaved. Others feared asking questions that might lead to trouble. So Emma remained unseen, her tiny hands pressed against the glass, her eyes fixed on the garden, her quiet voice repeating the same message. She wasn't just making random sounds. She was trying with everything in her to say something important, but no one cared enough to listen. Every time she whispered, "Mommy." Again. There. She looked serious. Her eyes carried meaning, but her words fell flat to those around her. Deep inside, Emma knew she was pointing toward something real, something that mattered. It wasn't nonsense. She remembered something or someone out there. But she didn't know how to explain better, and no one ever asked. Then one day the pattern changed. A new maid entered the house. Her name was Maya. She came from a modest background, grateful just to have the job. But unlike the others, she didn't rush past Emma. On her very first day, Maya noticed the little girl at the window. She heard the strange words. she saw the sadness in Emma's face. And instead of ignoring her, Maya stopped. She turned her eyes toward the garden where Emma was pointing. It was such a small pause, but in that moment everything began to change. What was Emma really seeing out there? And why had no one else noticed? The answer, as Maya would soon discover, was far more heartbreaking than anyone imagined. Over the next few days, Maya kept noticing Emma at the window. The little girl was always there, pointing in the same direction, whispering the same phrase, "Mommy, again, there." While the other workers carried on with their routines, never giving the child more than a glance, Maya found herself stopping more often, quietly watching. She could tell there was something deeper behind those words. The way Emma's body tensed before she spoke, the way her tiny finger aimed at the same tree every time, the focus in her eyes. It all felt deliberate, like she was trying to send a message that no one had bothered to hear. Maya began approaching Emma gently, never forcing her to speak. Sometimes she would sit on the floor near the window and just let the child know she wasn't alone. "Hello, sweetheart," Maya would say softly, smiling. At first, Emma didn't respond. She barely moved her head. But slowly, day after day, her eyes began to follow Maya's presence around the room. The rest of the staff dismissed it. One older maid even told Maya, "Don't waste your time. The boss's daughter, she's special. Just let her be." The words made Maya's heart sink. She didn't like the way people spoke about the child, as if her silence made her less deserving of attention. Maya ignored them. She kept smiling at Emma, greeting her gently each morning. And little by little, Emma started to respond, not with words, but with her eyes, with a flicker of expression, with the faintest curve of a smile. One afternoon, something remarkable happened. Maya was folding laundry in the hallway when she noticed Emma standing behind her, watching quietly. The girl had left her usual spot at the window. She didn't say anything, but she stayed close, following Maya from room to room like a tiny shadow. Maya spoke softly as she worked, explaining simple things: how to fold a towel, how to tuck sheets, how to polish the table. She didn't expect Emma to answer, but she wanted her to feel included. Later that day, Maya saw Emma do something she hadn't seen before. She smiled. It was small, fragile, but it was real. For the first time, the child wasn't just pointing out the window. She was reaching out for connection. That evening, Maya brought Emma a piece of fruit. To her surprise, Emma took it, held it carefully, and whispered a word that froze Maya in place. "Mommy." Maya's heart raced. At first, she thought she had misheard, but Emma repeated it, clearer this time. "Mommy." Kneeling down, Maya gently touched her hand. "I'm Maya," she whispered back. But Emma only smiled softly and repeated, "Mommy." Maya didn't feel offended. She didn't try to correct her. Deep down, she understood this wasn't confusion, it was longing. Emma was trying to hold on to the memory of her real mother, and maybe, just maybe, she saw something safe, familiar in Maya. When Maya mentioned this to Lucas later that night, expecting some reaction, he simply shrugged. "She gets confused. It's just how she is." His words stung. How could a father dismiss something so important? Maya didn't argue, but she knew in her heart Emma wasn't just confused. She was communicating something deeper, and Maya was determined to uncover it. From then on, every time Emma pointed to the garden and whispered, "Mommy, again, there," Maya began looking closer. At first, she saw nothing unusual, just a patch of grass, some flowers, and an old tree. But the way Emma's voice grew sharper, The way her eyes lit with urgency made Maya certain there was more to the story. She made a quiet promise to herself. She would find out what was hidden in that garden. What secret could a silent little girl be trying to reveal through the same words, the same window every single day? Maya was about to discover that Emma's whispers weren't memories. They were clues. It was late in the afternoon when Maya finally decided she couldn't ignore Emma's pointing anymore. The child stood by the window, whispering her familiar phrase. "Mommy. Again. There." This time, instead of just glancing outside, Maya knelt beside her and held out her hand. "Let's go see Emma," she said softly. For a moment, Emma hesitated. Then, almost as if she had been waiting for someone to ask all along, she placed her small hand in Maya's. Together they walked through the hallway, past the kitchen and out the back door into the garden. The air was warm and the light of the setting sun cast long shadows across the yard. Emma didn't look around. Her gaze stayed fixed ahead as if she already knew exactly where she was leading Maya. Step by step, they moved past the flowers and trimmed hedges into a corner of the garden that looked untouched for years. Pushing aside tall weeds and overgrown branches, Maya finally saw it. Hidden behind the brush stood an old wooden swing, its frame crooked, its ropes frayed. The metal chains were spotted with rust, but the seat was still intact. Emma's face changed. Without waiting, she walked directly to the swing, sat down, and began to move back and forth slowly. Her legs swung lightly, her eyes closing as she whispered almost peacefully, "Mommy, again." Maya's breath caught in her throat. This wasn't just an old swing, it was something far more important. It was a memory, a link to a time Emma felt loved and safe. Perhaps her mother had once pushed her here. Perhaps the laughter of a life long gone was still tied to this place. Maya didn't interrupt. She simply sat nearby on the grass, letting Emma sway back and forth, whispering her words with a mix of sadness and comfort. In that moment, Maya finally understood. Emma hadn't been speaking nonsense. She had been pointing to a piece of her past, a place tied deeply to her mother's memory. From that day on, Maya made it a part of their routine. Every afternoon she would take Emma to the swing, and each time Emma seemed calmer. Her shoulders relaxed, her small face softened. Sometimes she even smiled as the wind brushed her cheeks. The rest of the staff still didn't understand. Some of them whispered, "Why is she wasting time in that old corner of the yard?" Others dismissed it as nothing more than indulging the girl's habits. But Maya ignored them. She knew the truth. Emma wasn't just stuck in her own world, she was remembering. She was holding on to the last connection she had with her mother. Weeks passed and the swing became their safe place. Emma began humming soft tunes as she swung. She even started using new words, pointing to flowers and saying "pretty" or tugging Maya's hand when she wanted her near. Small steps, but they meant everything. And then one afternoon something happened that made Maya's heart stop. As Emma swung gently, a sound of rustling came from the far corner of the garden. Maya looked up. And there, standing on top of a large rock, was a little girl. She was thin, her clothes dirty and torn, her face smudged with dust. Yet her eyes were sharp, steady, and locked on them. She didn't speak. She didn't move. She just stood there watching. Maya froze. She wasn't sure whether to call out or stay quiet. But before she could react, Emma did something completely unexpected. Instead of hiding or turning away like she usually did with strangers, she smiled. Then she climbed off the swing and walked straight toward the girl. Maya's heart raced. Emma had never reacted like this to anyone before. Who was this mysterious child who appeared out of nowhere? And why did Emma, usually so guarded, act like she already knew her? Emma walked closer to the strange girl without fear, her small steps steady, her face lit with a quiet smile. Maya, meanwhile, felt her chest tighten. Emma had never acted this way with anyone before. Usually, new faces made her retreat into silence, but now it was different, almost like she recognized something. The girl climbed down from the rock and moved toward Emma. They stopped face to face, staring at each other. And then, without speaking, they walked side by side back to the swing. Emma sat first while the mysterious girl pushed her gently, then they switched roles. No words were exchanged, but their body language said everything. There was a natural, instant bond. Maya stood frozen, watching in disbelief. It wasn't just the sudden connection that struck her, it was their appearance. The girl's eyes were the same deep shade of brown as Emma's. Her hair had the same color, even the same texture. Their faces carried similar expressions, little movements, even the way they tilted their heads. It was as if Emma were staring into a mirror, but with another child on the other side. Maya whispered to herself, "They look like twins." Her pulse quickened. She had never heard of Lucas having another child. No one in the household had ever spoken of it, and yet the resemblance was undeniable. After a few moments, Maya slowly approached, careful not to scare the girl away. Kneeling nearby, she spoke gently. "Hi there. Are you hungry? Would you like something to eat?" The girl's eyes darted between Maya and the food bag in her hand. Finally, she nodded. Maya pulled out a sandwich and a bottle of water, handing them over. The girl snatched the sandwich quickly, eating with large bites as if she hadn't eaten properly in days. Maya's heart ached at the sight. "Sweetheart, what's your name? Where do you live?" Maya asked softly. But the girl stayed silent. She chewed quickly, eyes lowered, avoiding the question, and then, as suddenly as she had appeared, the girl stood up. She gave Emma one last smile before turning and running toward the thick trees at the edge of the garden. "Wait!" Maya called out, chasing a few steps, but the girl vanished into the shadows, leaving nothing behind but silence. Breathing heavily, Maya returned to Emma, who was now back on the swing, calm as ever. But Maya's mind was racing. Who was that girl? Why did she look so much like Emma? And why did Emma accept her so quickly, as if she had been waiting for her? That night, Maya couldn't sleep. She replayed the moment over and over. The girl's face, her eyes, her resemblance to Emma. It was too much to ignore. She decided to prepare just in case the girl came back. Maya packed extra food, water, and even a small blanket to bring with her each day to the garden. Deep down, she knew this wasn't a random encounter. That little girl wasn't just a stranger. She was a piece of a puzzle that had been missing for years, and somehow Emma had been pointing toward her all along. But what secret could connect these two children so strongly? And why had Emma been the only one to sense it before anyone else? The next morning, Maya could barely focus on her chores. The image of the mysterious girl lingered in her mind. The resemblance to Emma was too striking, too impossible to dismiss. By midday, Maya knew she couldn't keep it to herself any longer. She needed to tell Lucas. She walked to his office, where he sat behind his massive desk, eyes fixed on financial reports as usual. Knocking lightly, Maya stepped inside. "I need to talk to you," she said, her voice steady. Lucas didn't look up. "About what?" he muttered, still typing. "About Emma, and something I saw yesterday," Maya replied firmly. That finally made him stop. Slowly, he raised his eyes. "Go on." Maya explained everything. The girl who appeared in the garden, her dirty clothes, her silence, the way she had eaten like she hadn't seen food in days. She described how Emma had reacted, how natural their bond was, and finally how the girl looked almost identical to Emma. Her eyes, her hair, even the way she moved, Maya said quietly. Lucas, she looked just like your daughter. For a long moment, Lucas sat completely still. His face paled, his hands frozen on the desk. Then with a heavy sigh, he stood and walked to the window, staring out without speaking. That's impossible, he muttered under his breath. Maya waited, not pushing him, giving him space to process. Finally, Lucas spoke again, his voice low. When Emma was born, there were complications. My wife died during childbirth. They told me only one baby survived. It was chaos that night, confusion everywhere. I never questioned what they told me. His voice cracked for the first time Maya had ever heard. But for years I've had this doubt. Something about that night didn't feel right. I buried it, tried to move on. But now, he turned to face her, his hands trembling. Now you're telling me a girl who looks exactly like Emma just appeared out of nowhere? Lucas walked back to his desk, opened a drawer, and pulled out an old, dusty folder. Inside were yellowed papers, hospital records, birth certificates, death reports. He hadn't looked at them in years. As he scanned the documents, his face darkened. There are inconsistencies, he said sharply. 2 different doctor signatures on the same form. Delays in reporting. Corrections that don't make sense. His jaw clenched. Why did I never notice this before? Maya's chest tightened. Lucas, what are you saying? He closed the folder, his eyes full of a new determination. I'm saying I can't ignore this anymore. If there's even the slightest chance my daughter, Emma's sister, was taken from me that night, I need the truth. I'll find it no matter what it takes. That night, Lucas booked a flight. He told Maya he was going back to the hospital where Emma had been born, to demand answers directly. Maya stayed behind, her heart heavy but hopeful. She promised to watch over Emma just as she always had. The next afternoon, Emma returned to the swing. And as Maya expected, the mysterious girl appeared again, thin, quiet, and watchful. Emma ran to her with a smile, as if she had known her all her life. They played together in silence, their connection unspoken but undeniable. Maya sat nearby, scribbling in a notebook. She wrote down the time the girl appeared, how long she stayed, the little details of her behavior. Maya knew this wasn't just playtime anymore. It was evidence, proof that Emma's whispers had always been more than random words. Lucas was about to uncover a truth that had been buried for years, a truth that would shake not only his family but everything he thought he knew about his daughter's birth. Days passed in uneasy silence. Lucas had flown out to confront the hospital, determined to untangle the mystery of Emma's birth. Maya stayed behind, caring for the little girl as always and carefully observing the mysterious child who kept returning to the garden. Each evening she appeared like clockwork, silent, thin, her eyes fixed on Emma. The two played as if they had never been apart. The bond between them grew stronger with every visit. They didn't need words. When one laughed, the other laughed too. When one moved, the other followed. It was as if their souls were stitched together by something unbreakable. Maya couldn't deny it anymore. This wasn't coincidence, this was family.
One afternoon, Emma whispered a word that nearly brought Maya to tears. As she held the girl's hand, she softly said, "Sister." The other child froze, then smiled, the kind of smile that showed she understood. From that moment, Emma called her Sissy. Every time she said it, her voice carried more confidence, more love. When Lucas returned, his face was heavy with anger and grief. He called Maya into the study late that night, laying a stack of papers across the desk. His hands shook as he spoke. The hospital lied. Records were altered. A nurse vanished 2 days after Emma's birth. There are reports that point to baby trafficking. His voice broke. I think my other daughter was stolen from me that night. Maya's breath caught. Then the girl in the garden? Yes, Lucas interrupted. I need proof. I've arranged a private DNA test. Quiet. No publicity. If she's mine, if she's Emma's twin, I'll know for certain. The next day, Maya gently explained to the girl that they needed her help. At first she didn't respond. But when Emma held her hand and whispered, "Sissy, come," she nodded. Maya dressed her in clean clothes, brushed her tangled hair, and held her close as they drove to a small clinic. The test was simple, just a swab inside the cheek. No pain. No needles. Lucas, Emma, and the girl were all tested. Within minutes it was over. But the wait for results would stretch into days that felt like a lifetime. During that time, something remarkable happened. Lucas began to change. He spent less time locked in his office and more time in the garden, watching the children laugh and run barefoot through the grass. Sometimes he even joined them, awkwardly at first, then with growing ease. Maya noticed him smiling, real, genuine smiles she had never seen before. Finally, after 6 long days, the envelope arrived. Lucas held it in his hands, staring at it as if it carried the weight of his entire life. He opened it slowly, scanning the results with trembling eyes. Then he whispered, his voice cracking, "She's mine, she's Emma's twin." The room fell silent. Emma looked up, her small hand reaching for the girl's. "Sissy," she said again, her voice steady. And this time, she wrapped her arms around her as if she had been waiting for this moment forever. Lucas sank into a chair, tears streaming down his face. Years of doubt, grief, and guilt poured out of him. He whispered the name his late wife had once chosen for a daughter. Clara. Her name will be Clara. From that day forward, the house was no longer a place of silence and routine. It was alive again. Laughter echoed through the halls. Emma, once quiet and distant, now spoke more each day. Clara, once lost, now had her name, her family, and her place in the world. And Maya, she remained at the heart of it all. Not just as a maid, but as the one who had seen what no one else did. The one who listened when everyone else ignored. The one who changed everything. The truth had finally surfaced. But this wasn't the end. It was the beginning of a new chapter for a family broken by loss and healed by love. Before we end this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your support helps us bring more powerful stories like this to life. Until next time, thank you for watching.